Hi guys. Yeah, so looking at the data again in Excel. In the last video, we just added the descriptive statistics for the two columns, volume and dwell. So columns K and L. Now I just want to check each of these numbers that are here. So 22049, that's the number. So if I try to replicate it, I just do count equals count. I'm going to count the number of rows here. Okay. And yes, I have 22049. Okay, I color that in blue, and if I copy the formula, I get the column next to it, which is also 22049 for dwell. Okay, then I'm just going to lock the rows because the rows are correct. Okay, and I don't lock the columns, so if I copy and paste, I get the same thing for, so this is the count, and this is the count for volume, this is the count for dwell. Then I'm going to check the sum. So since the rows have been locked, I can just copy and paste the formula above. So it's still pointing at the correct rows, but this time I'm gonna double click on the word count and just change it to sum. Okay, so this is the sum and it matches this number here. Okay, now I copy and paste it to column N, and this one is the sum for the average for the dwell. So okay, now I have the count and the sum. I can get the mean. So I am just going to copy the cell over here for the formatting, but I'm going to do equals to sum divided by count. That gives the mean, which matches this number here. Okay, so copy and paste. So checking all the numbers that Excel came with to understand. So the mean is correct. Next one would be median. So I copy there's a sum formula here. Okay, I copy and I paste it here. It's pointing at the correct cells. I double click on the word sum and just change it to median. Okay. So median is 32. Okay. 3.6. 32 containers is the median value and 3.6 days. Okay, that sounds reasonable. Okay, then I copy the same formula and this time paste it on the next row. Just looking for mode. So I change the word median to mode. Okay, mode is 1. So most frequent number of containers observed is 1. So often you get a case of, okay, and then I copy and paste here to see to dwell. Oh, okay. So most of the data we see 0 days. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe a point to note here is to check, is 0 days really 0 days or a few hours where the container actually dwells at the port. Okay. Okay, and the next one is standard deviation. So I'm going to copy and paste, and this time change the word mode to stdv, standard deviation, dot s for sample instead of p for population. This is a sample. We don't have the true. Okay, so that matches the number here from Excel. Copy and paste to check for dwell as well. That matches the number here. Okay, so far so good. Now sample variance. So sample variance is basically, and copy the format. Sample variance is basically the square of the standard deviation. So to the power of 2. Okay, that matches the number here. Copy and paste. Okay. Then kurtosis, the next one. So I'm just going to copy the formula. So kurtosis is just change standard deviation dot s to kurt. Right. Kurtosis is the peakedness of the. I don't know what to make sense of this number, so I have to think about it. But it looks like the data for the containers is more peaked at a certain point because it has a mode of 154, so it's less peaked for the days. Okay, never mind. Then next I check the skewness. So this is just change the word Kurt to skew. So skew is positive, which means it's a right-tailed, it's a right-skewed distribution. So the tail stretches out to the right because most of the data is on the left. So, yep, and that's positive 13 and positive 9. So both containers and days, they are skewed to the right, but it's more skewed to the right for containers. So this is right skewed, you have a right tail. Some cases in the data we see large number, rare but large number of containers and days. Right, so there are a few rare cases. Otherwise, most of the data is on the reasonable numbers. That's why it's right skewed. Okay, so next we look at minimum. So just copy one of the formulas and paste it here. And just change the word count to min. Okay, so minimum is one container at the very least, for makes sense. And 0 days is the minimum. Again, we want to ask what 0 days really means. Maximum, okay, so copy paste and then just change the formula min to max. Okay, 61,000. 61,000 is the maximum number of containers we see. Yeah, that's probably an outlier, right? So we're looking at the raw data here. Later we'll do the same exercise for the data excluding the outliers, right? So, okay, that's good. So the range here, okay, so finish up the maximum for both. The numbers match. Then the range is simply max minus min. So max minus min. Okay. Right. The numbers all match. Okay. Then we have standard error, which is basically equal to the standard deviation divided by the square root of the count. Right, so that's 19.219. Okay, so we have all the necessary. Okay, so we have the formulas here. These two, I'm just going to shift. So these two columns, I'm just going to move them away to the left. Cut and paste. Just move them away to the left so that I can put these formula columns directly above the. Okay, cut and paste. cut and paste is okay. It's slow. The spreadsheet is getting bigger. Okay, so these guys here refer to column K and column L. So I'm just going to move them to column K and L directly above, so that later I can just copy and paste the formulas over the other two columns, P and Q, which are the data after outliers have been removed. So we can see what happens to the descriptive statistics after outliers have been removed. Okay. Okay, so there's some notes here. Clean up. Okay, so I'm just gonna copy the formulas and paste them to P and Q. All right, so just do a quick check. These are pointing to the correct data sets here. Okay, so columns P and Q are the containers and days after. So this one is exclude outliers. Okay, so now we can see how these statistics have changed. The mean obviously dropped for both after removing outliers, which are on the right tail. The standard deviation also dropped, right? So you have, you know, huge standard deviation of 2,800 dropping to 138. So this makes a more reasonable variation in terms of the number of containers, and variation for the days dropped from 19 to about 5.8. Okay, so sample variance, the kurtosis is, no, these are all smaller statistics. Skewness, since we removed the outliers, it's still skewed to the right with the right tail, but since we chop off the tail, the skewness drops, but it's still positive. Okay, the range, since we removed the outliers, obviously the range will drop as well to a more reasonable number, 600 plus 24 days. So the range, instead of 500 days, removing the outliers, you get to see a more reasonable range between max and min, 24 days. Okay, right, so the maximum is 24 now, and here these are the sum and the count is the same. Okay, yeah, that's it for this video. In the next one, we'll probably look at this confidence level, which is actually margin of error. So margin of error, that's for later. Okay.